The opulent palace of Empress Zyra floated like a jewel above the crystalline surface of Thryn. Light bent around its towering spires, reflecting off glass-like walls that shimmered with the colors of the nebula below. Ships from across the galaxy docked at the palace's terraces, their designs as varied as the species that piloted them. Some were sleek and metallic, others organic, grown like living organisms, but all carried ambassadors, warriors, and dignitaries curious to witness the upcoming union that promised to reshape galactic politics. Captain Elias Kane adjusted the cuffs of his formal uniform, a simple Earth-made suit reinforced with light shielding. He stood on the observation deck, staring at the palace that seemed to float above clouds of sparkling gas. His chest tightened with anticipation, but he reminded himself that this mission was more than ceremonial. Earth had sent him not only as a groom, but as a diplomat, a representative of humanity's growing place among the stars. He straightened his shoulders. Today, he would face a challenge unlike any he had faced before. The shuttle doors opened, and a wave of alien scents, colors, and sounds hit him. The air inside the palace was artificially conditioned, but the smells of exotic perfumes, ozone, and unfamiliar metals were unmistakable. Servants of the court, sleek and elegant in their ceremonial attire, guided him down the grand staircase. The hall stretched endlessly, decorated with floating sculptures that rotated slowly, casting shadows on the polished floor. At the far end, a throne taller than any building on Earth gleamed in the light of the nebula. Sitting upon it was Empress Zyra. She was a vision of authority, with scales that shimmered in deep indigo and eyes like molten gold. Her posture radiated power. Every creature in the hall seemed to bow, bend, or flatten themselves in her presence. And then, when her gaze fell upon Elias, the entire hall shifted. A ripple of whispers ran through the spectators. "You are the human?" Zyra's voice rang like crystal against steel. It carried authority, but also a sharp note of amusement, as if the idea itself were a joke. Elias held his head high. "Yes, Your Majesty," he said. His voice was steady, though his stomach twisted. He had expected scrutiny, but the Empress's intensity was beyond anything he had imagined. The Empress's eyes scanned him from head to toe, her lips curved in a smile that held no warmth. "You are small, fragile, and primitive." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Tell me, human, how do you expect to stand beside me, ruler of the Solarian Empire, with such limitations?" Elias felt a flicker of irritation, but he did not respond immediately. He had been trained for this. Diplomats from Earth had warned him, never show anger, never plead, never appear weak. He took a slow breath, letting his calm presence contrast with the laughter that surrounded him. "I stand here because I was chosen to represent my people," Elias said evenly. "My strength is not measured by size or by appearance. My strength is measured by my actions, and I will prove that I am capable. Actions, not words, will show my worth." Holographic displays of Thryn's history, intricate dances performed by multi-limbed beings, and music that resonated in patterns humans could barely comprehend surrounded them. Yet through the dazzling lights and sounds, all eyes returned to the human groom. He could feel it. Every whispered comment, every subtle glance carried the same message. How could this weak, fragile species possibly match an empress? The touch was light, almost imperceptible, but enough to signal his participation. As they walked down the aisle together, whispers turned into murmurs. Some aliens mocked his awkward gait, others commented on his human scent, so different from their own. Yet amidst the ridicule, Elias noticed something remarkable. A few observers, both alien and human, were watching him closely. They weren't laughing, they weren't mocking, they were curious. Perhaps they thought this human might surprise them. After the ceremony, the Empress led Elias to the observation balcony overlooking the sprawling city of Thryn. The sky was a swirl of gas clouds, illuminated by twin suns that never set. The view was breathtaking, but Elias hardly had time to admire it. He knew that surviving ridicule in front of an empire was only the beginning. "You are clever, human," Zyra said suddenly, breaking the silence. Her gaze was sharp, assessing. "But cleverness alone will not carry you through what comes next. The galaxy is not forgiving to those who fail." He allowed a faint smile, the kind that suggested confidence without arrogance. "I am prepared to learn, to adapt, and to prove myself. Fewer triumph." The room was simple by Solarian standards, yet comfortable. He examined the small tools he had brought from Earth, a portable scanner, a multi-tool, and several devices designed to analyze, measure, and manipulate environments. He knew that brute strength would not help him here. He had to rely on human ingenuity, on adaptability, and on observation. He thought of the ridicule he had endured that afternoon. He could still feel the sting of it, the laughter, the doubt, the judgment. But instead of letting it weaken him, he allowed it to fuel him. Every human instinct told him that survival and triumph would require creativity, courage, and quick thinking. The galaxy might underestimate him, but he would not underestimate himself. As he drifted into a light sleep, he dreamed of the trials. In his dreams, alien warriors with strange weapons confronted him, and complex puzzles appeared before him. Each obstacle was daunting, yet he moved through them with calm determination, finding paths where others saw only walls. He woke with a sense of clarity, knowing that the real test would come soon. The next morning, the palace buzzed with activity. Aliens from countless worlds arrived to witness the beginning of the trials. The arena, a vast zero-gravity chamber, was unlike any battlefield Ilias had known. Platforms floated in midair, connected by shimmering energy bridges. Objects defied gravity, moving unpredictably. Competitors would have to navigate this environment while facing challenges that tested strength, intellect, and perception. When Ilias arrived at the arena, the crowd erupted in excitement. Many could barely hide their amusement at the human standing among the galaxy's greatest warriors. Yet Ilias walked calmly, observing the arena, noting every detail, every floating platform, every potential hazard. Zyra watched from her throne, her gaze sharp and unyielding. She leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand, her golden eyes locked on Ilias. "Let the trials begin," she declared. Her voice echoed through the chamber, carrying authority that made even the bravest competitors tense. The first challenge commenced, a test of agility and perception. Platforms shifted, energy barriers pulsed, and opponents moved unpredictably. Aliens with wings, tentacles, and psychic abilities soared past him, seemingly unbothered. Ilias took a deep breath and relied on his training. He calculated trajectories, used momentum to his advantage, and moved with precise timing. His progress was slower than some, faster than others, but he adapted with every step. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "He survives!" A few aliens nodded in surprise, realizing that the human was not as weak as he seemed. Some even leaned forward, curious to see what he would do next. By the end of the first challenge, Ilias had not only survived but completed the obstacle with ingenuity. He used a combination of strategy, timing, and clever improvisation to navigate hazards that others struggled with. The crowd murmured, some with disbelief, some with admiration. Zyra's gaze was unreadable, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of respect. She had ridiculed him, expecting a failure, yet the human had exceeded expectations in subtle, unpredictable ways. As Ilias prepared for the next phase of the trials, he felt a quiet satisfaction. This was only the beginning. The galaxy might mock him, doubt him, or underestimate him, but he knew the truth. His mind, his creativity, and his determination were his greatest weapons. And soon the universe would witness that even a human could stand among the stars. With that resolve, Ilias stepped forward, ready for the next challenge, ready to face the Empress's scrutiny, and ready to prove that humans, though small and fragile by alien standards, could achieve greatness beyond imagination. The arena of the Solarian Empire was vast beyond imagination. Its walls seemed to stretch into infinity, glittering with energy shields and holographic banners displaying the colors of hundreds of civilizations. Floating platforms hovered in midair, shifting slowly as if alive. Some platforms rotated, others ascended or dropped without warning. Energy barriers pulsed in rhythm, their colors changing from blue to crimson, signaling active zones that could block or even knock competitors off their paths. Captain Ilias Kane stood at the entrance of the arena, taking a steadying breath. Around him, competitors from all corners of the galaxy prepared themselves. Some were massive, bristling with cybernetic enhancements and armor plates. Others were elegant, sinewy, and fast with multiple limbs or wings. Every one of them carried weapons and tools designed to give them an advantage. Yet Ilias had nothing like that. His uniform was simple, earth-made, and his weapons were minimal. What he did have, however, was his mind, his instincts, and an ability to see opportunities others could not. The Empress Zyra watched from her throne, golden eyes gleaming with curiosity and doubt. "Remember," she said to the human under her breath, "the trials are not merely physical. They will test every part of you. Fail, and your weakness will become legend. Succeed, and perhaps you might earn respect." Observation, calculation, improvisation, those were his tools. The first trial would test agility, perception, and adaptability. Competitors would need to traverse the shifting platforms and reach the central energy core without being knocked off by moving obstacles, traps, or opponents attempting to gain advantage. The gate lifted, and the first group of competitors moved. Alien warriors leaped effortlessly from platform to platform. One competitor, a winged creature from the Illora system, soared across gaps with ease, leaving Elias momentarily stunned. Another, a multi-limbed strategist from Jeter, seemed to glide with uncanny precision, adjusting every step in perfect timing. The crowd cheered, impressed by the display of skill. Then all eyes turned to the human. Elias took a deep breath and analyzed the platforms. Each one had a subtle shimmer indicating which would move next. Some were stable for long periods, while others rotated or disappeared suddenly. He noticed the energy barriers pulsing in rhythmic patterns. Timing, he realized, would be everything. As the human stepped forward, he felt the first platform shift beneath him. He planted his foot, leaned into the motion, and let momentum carry him. Instead of trying to overpower the movement, he worked with it. A gust of controlled balance, a push from his arms, and he was across the first obstacle. The aliens around him paused, impressed at his control, though none cheered. Humans were considered unpredictable, but their unpredictability was often equated with weakness. Elias intended to prove otherwise. A massive competitor from Tarchan attempted to block his path, swinging a heavy staff to knock him off balance. Elias observed, calculated, and acted. Instead of confronting the Tarchan directly, he used the momentum of the staff against the attacker. With a swift sidestep and a push, the competitor stumbled onto a nearby platform that shifted under its weight, nearly ejecting him. Murmurs spread through the crowd. The human was not just surviving. He was using intelligence and timing to manipulate situations that others relied solely on strength to overcome. Another challenge appeared as he reached the halfway point, a section of platforms that floated far apart, connected only by thin energy bridges. The slightest misstep would send a competitor plummeting into the void below. Many attempted to run across, only to falter or fall. Elias examined the bridges, noticing subtle energy fluctuations. The bridges pulsed with a pattern he could predict. He counted the cycles, timing his steps to the rhythm of the pulses. Carefully, deliberately, he crossed the first bridge, then the second, and finally landed safely on the far platform. The crowd gasped. Yet even as he progressed, danger intensified. A competitor with psychic abilities appeared. This alien could anticipate movement, predicting where opponents would step and creating force fields to block them. Others had fallen to this competitor, unable to move freely. Elias paused, watching the field shimmer in response to the psychic's thoughts. Then he remembered a lesson from Earth. Unpredictability confuses the observer. Instead of moving as expected, he varied his steps, incorporating small hesitations, jumps, and shifts in rhythm. The psychic's force fields misfired, creating openings for him to advance. As he approached the final platform of the trial, a massive energy barrier separated him from the finish line. It pulsed violently, and any direct contact could send him hurtling into the void. The human competitor before him, a towering alien from Korun, charged, confident in their power. Elias knew he could not face them head-on. Instead, he observed the barrier. Its pulse had a tiny, almost imperceptible pause every few cycles. Timing his leap perfectly, he launched across the energy pulse, avoiding both the barrier and the Korun competitor. He landed, rolling to absorb the momentum, and rose to find himself at the center of the arena. For the first time, the audience erupted, not in laughter, but in genuine astonishment. Even the alien elites whispered to one another. A human, considered weak and fragile, had completed the first trial while manipulating situations far beyond brute strength. Zyra's golden eyes narrowed, a spark of admiration flickering beneath the surface of her usual composure. The trials continued without pause. Next came a test of intelligence and strategy. Competitors were presented with a holographic simulation of a star system under threat. They had to deploy fleets, negotiate with alien factions, and prevent conflict from escalating into destruction. Many aliens relied on brute force tactics, overwhelming weaker factions or using psychic coercion. Elias studied the simulation. He noticed patterns the others overlooked, the subtle motivations of factions, the predictable behavior of aggressive species, and the flaws in his competitors' strategies. He made calculated moves, diverting resources where needed, creating alliances and preventing battles before they started. Other competitors scoffed, underestimating the human, expecting chaos to overtake him. But as the simulation unfolded, Elia's approach succeeded. Star systems that had been at the brink of collapse stabilized, alliances strengthened, and the simulation ended with the human achieving a flawless resolution. Murmurs of amazement echoed again, and some competitors began to reassess their expectations. After hours of trials, the human faced the final test of the day: endurance and courage. The arena transformed into a zero-gravity labyrinth filled with shifting walls, sudden drops, and hazards that mimicked a real battlefield. Competitors had to navigate to the center while avoiding traps, ambushes, and environmental dangers. Aliens with natural advantages, wings, multiple limbs, or enhanced strength, moved quickly, bypassing obstacles humans would struggle with. Elias had no such advantage. He relied on careful observation, quick adaptation, and creative use of his tools. A trapdoor opened beneath him unexpectedly. He swung his legs, caught a handhold, and swung onto a moving platform. A spiked wall emerged, closing rapidly. He timed a jump perfectly, landing safely as the wall slammed behind him. Another competitor, confident in their size and strength, miscalculated and was sent tumbling. Elias moved forward steadily, using his ingenuity rather than force. As he approached the center, the final obstacle appeared, a holographic projection of Zyra herself, issuing commands to eliminate any who approached. The projection was designed to test mental fortitude, resilience, and decision-making under pressure. Competitors faltered, confused, and hesitated. Elias studied the projection, realizing it followed a predictable pattern. By anticipating the projection's movements, he advanced without hesitation, reaching the core of the arena just as the projection vanished. When Elias finally stood in the center, the crowd fell silent for a moment, and then erupted into applause and astonished cheers. Even the Empress allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible smile. The human had not only survived the trials of agility, intelligence, and endurance, he had excelled in ways the galaxy had not expected. Competitors approached him afterward, some with respect, others with cautious curiosity. A few nodded, acknowledging his cleverness and skill. The whispers that once mocked him now carried a different tone: caution, admiration, and in some cases, fear. Humans, they realized, were not easily predicted. Their strengths lay not in physical prowess, but in ingenuity, adaptability, and courage. Zyra called him forward as the trials concluded for the day. "You survive," she said, her voice calm but sharp. "You adapt, you endure. I expected weakness, human, and yet you perform. That is how I endure." Yet for the first time he felt something else, a quiet confidence. He had proven that human skill, creativity, and resilience could survive among the galaxy's greatest warriors. He had turned ridicule into respect, not through strength, but through intelligence and courage. That night, as Elias rested, he reviewed the day's events. He remembered the energy pulses, the shifting platforms, the simulated star system, and the zero-gravity labyrinth. Each challenge had a pattern, a logic, and a flaw. Humans excelled at seeing patterns and exploiting weaknesses. The aliens had overlooked that, assuming superiority in raw power and specialized abilities. Elias smiled. Tomorrow would bring even greater challenges, and he intended to face them with the same focus and creativity. As he drifted to sleep, he thought of the Empress's words, the murmurs of the crowd, and the awe in the eyes of his competitors. For the first time, he understood something fundamental about the galaxy. It did not matter how small or fragile a species appeared. What mattered was ingenuity, courage, and the willingness to act when others hesitated. Humans had those traits in abundance, and Elias Kane, the ridiculed human groom, would ensure that the galaxy remembered it. The next morning, the palace of Empress Zyra was alive with whispers. The trials had begun, and already the galaxy spoke of the human groom. Captain Elias Kane had survived the first tests, his ingenuity and courage surpassing every expectation. Even the most skeptical aliens were beginning to murmur quietly, unsure of how to categorize this species that should have failed. But the Empress herself remained unreadable. Her golden eyes, though flickering with a hint of interest, still watched him like a predator watching prey that might yet surprise. Elias awoke in his modest quarters, reviewing the events of the previous day. Each trial, each obstacle had a pattern. Each competitor had a strategy. And he, with careful observation and quick thinking, had found a path to succeed. But today would be different. He sensed it in the palace corridors, in the looks exchanged by alien courtiers, in the subtle hum of security drones patrolling the halls. Something was not as it seemed. As he moved toward the breakfast chamber, he noticed a group of Solarian guards huddled in the corner, speaking quietly. Their gestures were sharp, almost anxious. Curious, Elias slowed his pace and observed them without drawing attention. One guard left abruptly, vanishing into the corridors that led to the lower levels of the palace. A faint sense of unease prickled at Elias' instincts. Humans had learned long ago that subtle changes in behavior often indicated hidden danger. Breakfast was a quiet affair, filled with ceremonial foods of the Solarian Empire. Elias noted that none of the other competitors joined him. He sat alone, savoring the simplicity of a boiled egg and bread brought from Earth. While he ate, he scanned the room. Subtle glances, whispered conversations, and a few hurried movements suggested that not all eyes were on him because of admiration. Some were watching because they feared what he might do next, or perhaps because they had their own agendas. After breakfast, Zyra summoned him. Her throne room glimmered with crystalline light, casting long, elegant shadows across the polished floor. Elias entered, bowing slightly. The Empress regarded him silently for a long moment. "You have surprised me, human," she said finally. "Your performance in the first trials has been remarkable. Yet the true measure of a competitor is not in agility or intellect alone. It is in adaptability, in foresight, and in courage under threat. There are forces within my court that would see you fail before the trials even begin. You must navigate not only challenges but deception. Do not trust everything you see." In these, cunning and observation were as vital as strength. He would have to uncover the hidden threat before it found him. The arena for today was no longer a straightforward platform. It had transformed into a labyrinth of corridors, chambers, and observation decks. Each corridor was lined with sensors, hidden cameras, and pressure-sensitive floors. Simulations flickered in the air, some showing holographic obstacles, others concealing real hazards. Competitors moved cautiously, aware that a single misstep could lead to elimination. As Elias advanced, he noticed a strange pattern. Some competitors seemed unusually aggressive, not toward the challenges themselves, but toward him. It was subtle, almost imperceptible at first. A heavy set of legs brushed past him in a hallway, nearly knocking him off balance. A flick of a clawed hand aimed for his uniform, though nothing touched him. It was clear now. Someone was attempting to sabotage him, and they were using the trial itself as a cover. Elias slowed his steps and began observing more carefully. He noticed tiny details, footprints that did not match the competitor walking ahead, energy fluctuations indicating hidden devices, and whispered signals in a language unfamiliar to him, but likely intended for coordination. This was no ordinary trial. This was a trap, and someone powerful was orchestrating it. He took a detour through a side corridor, using shadowed alcoves to avoid detection. Along the way, he discovered a hidden compartment behind a wall panel. Inside were devices humming softly, clearly designed to interfere with a competitor's movement. Sensors that could misdirect, holograms to distract, and even a trapdoor triggered by pressure. Someone had spent considerable effort to ensure that he would fail. Elias crouched and examined the devices. Each had a pattern of activation, a flaw in its design. Humans were naturally adept at improvisation, and he used his multi-tool to disable the pressure triggers, redirect the holographic projections, and prevent the trapdoor from opening. His movements were precise, calm, and deliberate. By turning the traps against themselves, he transformed danger into opportunity. As he moved deeper into the labyrinth, he encountered the hidden faction itself. A group of competitors, coordinated and efficient, attempted to corner him. They underestimated him, assuming he would rely on physical strength or conventional tactics. Elias, however, had observed their formation and predicted their approach. Using quick thinking and the environment, he lured one into triggering a hidden energy net, while another fell into a pit that had been designed for him. The remaining members hesitated, realizing the human was far more clever than they expected. Through corridors and chambers, Elias continued, uncovering more of the faction's plan. They intended to frame him for sabotaging the trials, hoping the Empress would eliminate him publicly. If successful, not only would he fail, but humanity's reputation would be tarnished across the galaxy. The stakes were higher than ever, yet Elias remained composed. Fear was a tool for those who relied on intimidation. He relied on observation, logic, and timing. Finally, he reached the central chamber. Here, the simulation shifted into full reality. The faction's leader emerged, a tall, armored alien with sharp features and an air of command. The Empress's warning echoed in Elias' mind. Do not trust everything you see. The leader spoke, attempting diplomacy, but his words carried hidden threats. You have no place here, human, the alien said, voice low and commanding. Step aside and perhaps the Empress will show mercy. Elias leaned slightly forward, a gesture of compliance, then quickly shifted, sending the alien off balance with a calculated push and momentum from the moving floor. The other faction members reacted, but Elias was already moving. Using a combination of agility, environment manipulation, and quick improvisation, he outmaneuvered them, redirecting energy fields to block their path and neutralizing devices intended to trap him. It was not brute force that won him the victory. It was careful observation, anticipation, and creative use of available resources. The leader realized he had underestimated the human. Impossible, he muttered, eyes narrowing. A human cannot be this adaptable. The Empress appeared via a holographic projection, her expression unreadable. You have uncovered a hidden threat, human. You have navigated deception, sabotage, and danger. Few competitors would survive such a test. Fewer still would succeed without making a single fatal mistake. Danger is not only to be feared, it is to be understood. The hidden faction had sought to undermine him, but he had turned their plans against them. The galaxy underestimated humans, believing them weak, fragile, and predictable. Yet he had shown that intelligence, courage, and ingenuity could overcome even the most formidable plots. Walking through the labyrinth back to the palace, he reflected on the lessons of the day. Every trap, every hidden threat, every overconfident competitor had revealed one truth. Survival in this galaxy required more than strength. It required creativity, adaptability, and the ability to see what others overlooked. By the time Elias returned to his quarters, the sun of Thryn had set behind the crystalline mountains, casting the palace in shades of violet and gold. He took a quiet moment to breathe, reviewing the events, the traps, and the hidden faction. Humans were often underestimated, but history had proven that underestimation could be deadly. He intended to ensure that neither he nor his species would ever again be dismissed as weak. Before sleep claimed him, Elias prepared for the next day. The trials were far from over, and he knew that the challenges would grow in complexity and danger. Yet he also knew that humans had one advantage no alien species could fully anticipate: the ability to innovate under pressure. Strength alone could not defeat him. Intelligence, courage, and quick adaptation would. And as the stars above Thryn shimmered in silent witness, Elias Kane, the ridiculed human groom, felt a quiet determination settle in his chest. The galaxy had doubted him, his competitors had tried to destroy him, and even the Empress had expected him to fail. Yet he had survived, clever and unbroken. Tomorrow the trials would grow harsher. Tomorrow the true test would begin. And the galaxy would soon witness that even a human, considered small and fragile, could outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast the most formidable opponents in the universe. The grand arena of the Solarian Empire stretched across the central plateau of Thryn like a city suspended in space. Its walls were made of a shimmering, translucent material that reflected the light of the twin suns. Platforms floated in midair, spinning, shifting, and pulsing with energy, forming a labyrinth unlike anything Elias had ever seen. The air hummed with the quiet power of advanced technology, and the scent of ozone and alien metal filled the space. This was the final trial, the one that would determine not just the winner of the competition, but the reputation of every species represented in the arena. The competitors assembled at the edge of the labyrinth, each taking a moment to prepare. Towering aliens flexed their multiple limbs, winged creatures flapped cautiously in the air, and cybernetically enhanced warriors adjusted their armor. Elias, in contrast, simply took a deep breath, scanning the entire arena with careful eyes. From her throne suspended above the arena, Empress Zyra observed him with an intensity that made even the boldest alien competitors shift uneasily. "This trial," she announced, her voice carrying effortlessly through the chamber, "will test leadership, strategy, and vision. You will not only face obstacles of the mind and body, but must command fleets, negotiate alliances, and solve crises in a simulation that mirrors reality. Fail, and the consequences will ripple across the galaxy." It was about understanding complexity, predicting behavior, and making decisions under pressure. Humans, he knew, excelled at this. Their survival had always depended on seeing patterns, adapting quickly, and making difficult choices with limited information. The first obstacle was a test of strategy. Holographic star systems appeared around the arena, each populated with fleets, colonies, and trade routes. Competitors were assigned the task of resolving a simulated conflict in which resources were scarce and tensions between systems threatened war. Many of the aliens reacted instinctively, sending fleets to intimidate or overpower weaker factions. Humans, they assumed, would be slow, ineffective, and predictable. Elias studied the simulation carefully. He noticed patterns in the alien AI commanders. Some relied too heavily on aggression, others on bluffing, and many on rigid protocols. Using these patterns, he began to manipulate the scenario subtly. He directed trade negotiations, rerouted supply lines, and created alliances between smaller factions that had been overlooked by the others. Conflicts that seemed inevitable dissolved under his guidance. While competitors relied on force or psychic coercion, Elias relied on observation and logic. His decisions were deliberate, informed by careful analysis and occasionally creative improvisation. The crowd watched in astonishment as the human Groom, who had once been ridiculed, orchestrated the simulation with precision, resolving crises without a single fleet lost and ensuring all colonies were secure. Next came the test of leadership. The arena shifted, and competitors found themselves controlling holographic squads in a zero-gravity battlefield. Some had enhanced reflexes, others psychic abilities, yet Elias adapted. He noticed that his squads responded best to clear, decisive instructions. Using quick-hand signals and calm, precise communication, he coordinated attacks, defenses, and maneuvers that kept his forces ahead. Aliens with natural advantages, multiple limbs, psychic foresight, or cybernetic enhancements struggled to coordinate their squads effectively. A sudden crisis emerged. A rogue AI in the simulation activated, threatening to destroy key star systems. Competitors panicked, reacting with brute force or fleeing from the AI's attacks. Elias, however, remained calm. He analyzed the AI's behavior and predicted its movements, setting traps that used its own logic against it. By directing the AI toward decoy systems and carefully manipulating its path, he neutralized the threat without unnecessary destruction. His actions demonstrated not just skill, but foresight and adaptability. The audience murmured, impressed and increasingly awed. Whispers spread, "The human, he is not just clever, he is remarkable." Even competitors who had once mocked him began to respect the precision and intelligence of his approach. The tide of ridicule that had once surrounded him had reversed into admiration, though Elias paid it little mind. He focused on the tasks ahead, knowing that the final phase would demand every ounce of his ingenuity. The last phase was physical, testing endurance, agility, and courage. The arena transformed once again, revealing a complex labyrinth of platforms, energy bridges, and moving obstacles suspended over a void that seemed endless. Opponents would need to navigate swiftly, avoid hazards, and complete the course while under time pressure. Many of the aliens relied on raw strength, wings, or speed, believing they would surpass a human easily. Elias knew otherwise. He observed the labyrinth carefully. Each platform had a rhythm, a pattern in its movement, and each energy bridge pulsed at a frequency that could be predicted. Timing, he realized, would be crucial. Competitors rushed ahead, many faltering immediately, overestimating their abilities. Elias moved deliberately, pacing himself, calculating jumps, swings, and landings. He used momentum, observation, and ingenuity to navigate obstacles that others failed at despite their natural advantages. At one point, a large competitor attempted to block his path. The alien lunged, relying on strength and size. Elias stepped to the side, using the attacker's momentum against them. The alien stumbled onto a moving platform that shifted violently, nearly ejecting them from the course. Observers gasped. A human had outmaneuvered a creature far larger and stronger. Further into the labyrinth, a section of energy fields pulsed unpredictably. Aliens hesitated, unsure how to proceed. Elias noticed the pulse had a subtle rhythm, almost imperceptible. By counting the cycles and adjusting his steps, he crossed safely while others faltered. His focus, adaptability, and calm under pressure allowed him to move faster and more safely than competitors who relied solely on physical advantage. As he neared the final platform, the arena presented one last challenge, a holographic projection of the Empress herself, issuing commands and creating obstacles to test decision-making under stress. Competitors froze or reacted instinctively, misjudging the projection's patterns. Elias analyzed the timing, anticipating her movements. By acting unpredictably, he avoided the traps and reached the center platform with precision and calm. The audience erupted, a mix of astonishment, awe, and admiration. Even Zyra's usually unreadable expression softened slightly, her eyes flickering with recognition. The human once ridiculed had not just survived. He had outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and outperformed every competitor. Elias stood at the center, catching his breath. The trial was complete. Competitors approached him, some with respectful nods, others with quiet congratulations. A few admitted openly that they had underestimated humans, acknowledging the ingenuity and resilience he had displayed. The ripple of respect extended beyond the arena. Stories would be told across star systems of the human groom who outperformed the galaxy's elite. Zyra's voice resonated across the arena. You have completed the final trial, human. You have demonstrated intelligence, strategy, and courage in a manner none expected. You have proven that strength alone does not determine greatness. Adaptability, insight, and determination matter as much as power. The galaxy now witnesses not a weak species, but one capable of remarkable achievement. The tale of the ridiculed human groom would spread across the stars, inspiring awe and perhaps even caution among those who underestimated humans. As the crowd dispersed, Elias remained on the platform, absorbing the magnitude of the moment. He had turned ridicule into recognition, doubt into respect, and weakness into a demonstration of human potential. Every step, every observation, every decision had led to this moment. The galaxy had witnessed his skill and determination, yet Elias knew the journey was not over. Challenges beyond the trials awaited, threats to peace, and tests that would require more than intelligence or courage. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of quiet triumph. Humans were not the weakest species in the galaxy. They were adaptable, clever, and capable of achieving what others could not anticipate. The Empress descended from her throne, her golden eyes meeting his. "Tomorrow, we celebrate your achievements," she said softly. "And you will understand that respect is earned not by birth but by action. The galaxy has watched and it has learned." The trials had been more than a test of skill. They had been a demonstration of human potential. Even the most powerful alien species had witnessed what humans could accomplish. As the twin suns set behind Thrin, casting the palace in shades of violet and gold, Elias felt the quiet satisfaction of accomplishment. He had faced the impossible, turned obstacles into opportunities, and proven that even a human could rise to the challenges of the galaxy. The next day would bring recognition, celebrations, and perhaps new responsibilities. The galaxy had seen the ridiculed human groom overcome the greatest trials, but Elias knew that his journey was only beginning. Adaptability, ingenuity, and courage would continue to guide him, and the galaxy would watch with newfound respect for the human species. He returned to his quarters, reviewing each step of the trial in his mind. Every observation, every pattern, every improvised solution was a lesson learned. Tomorrow, he would prepare for the next chapter, not just for himself, but for humanity. The universe was vast, unpredictable, and full of challenges. But humans, he realized, were not so small or fragile after all. Elias looked out at the stars above Thrin. The trials had tested him, the galaxy had witnessed him, and the Empress had acknowledged his skill. Yet he knew that beyond the palace, beyond the arena, lay even greater challenges. He had proven himself in this crucible, but the universe would always demand more. And he was ready. The human groom, once ridiculed, now stood as a testament to human ingenuity, courage, and resilience. The galaxy had watched. And it would never underestimate humanity again. The palace of Empress Zyra shone brighter than ever that morning, its crystalline towers reflecting the light of Thrin's twin suns. Word of Captain Elias Kane's victories in the trials had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Alien dignitaries whispered in astonishment, human envoys smiled with quiet pride, and the citizens of Thrin crowded the observation decks, eager to see the human who had defied every expectation. Elias awoke in his quarters with a mixture of calm and anticipation. He had survived the trials, outsmarted competitors, and navigated sabotage, but the final challenge was not in the arena. It was the recognition ceremony. Today, the galaxy would witness how humans, once ridiculed and dismissed, could rise among the stars. As he stepped into the main hall, he saw the Empress waiting. Her scales shimmered with hues of deep indigo, and her golden eyes held a look that was no longer mocking, but calculating, respectful, almost cautious. The hall was filled with spectators from countless worlds, all silent, waiting for the ceremony to begin. Zyra's voice carried effortlessly through the hall. Today, we honor not only the victor of the trials, but also a species that has shown resilience, ingenuity, and courage. Captain Elia's Cane of Earth has proven that greatness is not determined by size, strength, or alien superiority, but by intelligence, adaptability, and determination. The story of his achievements, the outmaneuvering of competitors, the navigation of deadly traps, the resolution of simulated conflicts, was known across the galaxy, but seeing him here in person gave it a weight that no tale could match. Elias stepped forward, head held high. He did not speak immediately, letting the Empress' words sink in among the crowd. Humans had always been underestimated. In countless stories and histories, they were seen as fragile, weak, or naive. Yet here he was, standing at the center of the galaxy's attention, having turned ridicule into triumph. Zyra continued, "You have not only completed the trials, but have done so with creativity and courage unmatched by any competitor. You have faced deception, sabotage, and danger, and have emerged victorious. You have reminded us all that intelligence and determination can overcome the greatest odds." For centuries, humans had struggled to find a place among the stars, often dismissed by older and more advanced civilizations. Today, that perception changed. He spoke finally, his voice calm but steady. "I am honored, Your Majesty, but this victory is not mine alone. It belongs to every human who has ever faced doubt, who has ever relied on intelligence and courage when strength alone was insufficient. Humans are often underestimated, yet we adapt, we learn, and we endure. That is how we survive, and that is how we triumph." Even those who had plotted against him whispered quietly among themselves, acknowledging the cleverness and resilience of a species they had dismissed. The ceremony continued. Zyra descended from her throne, moving gracefully toward Elias. For the first time, her expression softened entirely. "I doubted you, human. I ridiculed you, believing you would fail, and yet you have proven me wrong. You have shown that the human spirit, intelligence, and courage are forces to be reckoned with. I admit my error openly, and I honor you not just as my groom, but as a partner worthy of the respect of the galaxy." Recognition from the ruler of one of the galaxy's greatest empires was more than ceremonial. It was a signal to every alien species that humans were no longer to be underestimated. Throughout the hall, humans attending as part of the delegation smiled quietly, their pride tempered by the gravity of the moment. For years, humanity had fought to establish itself among advanced civilizations. Today, the actions of one man changed the perception of an entire species. The Empress raised her hand, signaling a moment of silence. "Let it be known," she declared, "that Captain Elia's Cane of Earth has achieved what few thought possible. Let his example serve as proof that intelligence, courage, and ingenuity can overcome the greatest challenges, even in a galaxy that underestimates the weak." The crowd gasped at the precision and cleverness of Elia's actions, realizing that humans, small and fragile though they may appear, had the ability to rival the most advanced civilizations. Competitors approached him afterward. Some extended limbs or hands in gesture of respect. Others spoke quietly, acknowledging his clever strategies. Aliens who had once plotted against him now observed him with wary admiration. Elias had not only survived the trials, but had done so in a way that ensured no one could dismiss him again. The Empress addressed him privately after the ceremony. "The galaxy has watched, human. You have demonstrated what we have long ignored. Humans are not weak. Your species is clever, adaptable, and capable of incredible achievement. Do you understand what you have done? You have earned respect not just for yourself, but for humanity. That respect will carry weight across star systems. Your actions will be remembered." News channels, holocoms, and starship transmissions carried the story of the ridiculed human groom who had triumphed over elite alien competitors, uncovered sabotage, and completed trials that tested intellect, agility, and strategy. Human colonies celebrated. Earth's leaders sent messages of congratulations. Across the stars, humans were no longer just another species. They were innovators, problem solvers, and worthy competitors on a galactic stage. Elias was led to a balcony overlooking the city of Thrin. Below, citizens and visitors from countless worlds watched in awe. Holographic banners celebrated the human groom, and cheers rang through the streets and the skies. For a species often underestimated, the sight was revolutionary. Humans were now seen as capable, resourceful, and resilient. Even in the midst of celebration, Elias remained focused. He knew that recognition alone did not guarantee continued success. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and full of challenges that would test not just humans, but every civilization. Yet he also knew that the trials had proven something fundamental. Humans could adapt, think strategically, and overcome obstacles far beyond what others expected. The Empress joined him on the balcony, her presence a silent acknowledgement of partnership and mutual respect. "You have changed perception," she said softly. "Not just for yourself, but for your species. Few have that ability. We adapt, we learn, and when challenged, we can achieve what others think impossible. Today, the galaxy has seen that." Alien scientists were curious about Earth technology, strategists wanted to understand his methods, and diplomats sought alliances with a species now proven clever, adaptable, and courageous. For Elias, it was both a triumph and a responsibility. Humanity had earned a place in the galaxy not through force or domination, but through ingenuity and courage. The trials had been a proving ground, but the real work was just beginning, building trust, forging alliances, and continuing to demonstrate that humans could meet the galaxy's challenges. The Empress turned to him with a subtle smile. "You have proven something rare, human, not just skill, but the essence of your species. The galaxy has seen it, and I suspect it will never forget. Now we have shown that we belong among them." He had turned mockery into admiration, skepticism into respect, and weakness into a demonstration of humanity's true strength. The celebrations would continue, and stories of the human groom's triumph would spread across systems, inspiring both humans and aliens alike. Yet for Elias, the real victory lay not in recognition, but in the proof that humans, when underestimated, could rise to any challenge. And as the stars twinkled overhead, he realized something profound. The galaxy had seen humanity's potential, but the journey had only just begun. There were challenges yet unseen, crises yet untested, and opportunities beyond imagination. And humans, clever, adaptable, and courageous, would be ready. The ridiculed human groom, once laughed at and dismissed, had transformed the perception of an entire species. Humanity had earned its place in the stars, not through strength alone, but through ingenuity, determination, and the unyielding spirit that had carried them from Earth to Thryn, and now to the eyes of the galaxy. Elias Kane turned back toward the palace, knowing that recognition was only the beginning. The universe was vast, full of unknowns, and alive with possibilities. But for the first time, humans would not face it as the underestimated, the overlooked, or the weak. They would face it as equals, as innovators, and as a species capable of achieving greatness beyond expectation. And somewhere across the galaxy, the whisper ran from star system to star system. The human groom had triumphed, and the galaxy would never again doubt humanity.